Hello, my name is Dr. Jordan Stenzel, co-owner and chiropractic physician at OPS Clinics in Mapleton and Blue Earth, Minnesota. My goal is to help you better understand your nervous system, how the peripheral nervous system is susceptible to damage, and what we can do to better your symptoms. This information is strictly for educational purposes only. Let's start off by describing and defining what peripheral neuropathy is. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, peripheral neuropathy refers to the many conditions that involve damage to the peripheral nervous system, the vast communication network that sends signals between the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, and all other parts of the body. Another description of peripheral neuropathy, according to the website mayoclinic.org, is a result of damage to the nerves located outside of the brain and spinal cord. For better understanding of these definitions, here is a visualization of the central nervous system, which consists of both the brain and the spinal cord. As you can see in the next picture, the peripheral nervous system consists of all the nerves outside of the brain and the spinal cord. This means problems from peripheral neuropathy occur outside of the central nervous system. Now that we have an understanding of what peripheral neuropathy is and where it is located, let's better understand some of the common symptoms one may experience. In order to explain why the symptom is occurring, we need to recognize that there are three different categories of neuropathy. These categories can be broken down into motor, sensory, and autonomic neuropathy. Here is a general overview of these three types of neuropathy. Motoric neuropathy can affect controlled movement. Next, sensory neuropathy can affect your perception of pain, awareness of where a limb is in space, among many other functions. And finally, autonomic neuropathy can affect your body's ability to regulate things like blood pressure, hot and cold regulation, and even your heart rate. It is important to keep in mind in most cases, peripheral neuropathy affects at least two of these categories at a time. So what do you feel? I would imagine the nerve pain, numbing, tingling, burning sensations are some of the most uncomfortable sensations perceived. But what about the less perceived symptoms such as loss of balance, high blood pressure, fatigue? Are these other symptoms that you feel? Let's dig a little further. Now that we know some of the symptoms of neuropathy and how it can affect our bodies, we need to figure out the root cause. According to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, diabetes is the number one cause to polyneuropathy, or neuropathy that causes damage to several peripheral nerves. The number one cause to mononeuropathy, or a neuropathy that causes damage to one nerve, is an acute injury. Now, there are over 100 types of neuropathies, and a thorough examination is to be done to best determine what neuropathy is to be treated. In order to better answer the why questions to our neuropathy, we must understand some basic concepts of our nervous system. As we move forward learning about our basic neuroanatomy and physiology, please remember these two key concepts. Our nerves need 4 ingredients in order to grow and survive. These ingredients are oxygen, food, stimulation, and neurotrophic factors. We also need healthy tissue, which is required for nerve survival and symptom improvement. Now, let's review some basic anatomy and physiology concepts of the nervous system and give you a visual as to what your body does in a normal, healthy environment. As we have shown before, we have reviewed both the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Next, I want to talk about a neuron. And a neuron is simply a nerve cell. It is worth noting that neurons do not necessarily touch each other, but rather are separated by little pools of charged material known as a synapse. We know that neurons move information from one spot to the next. And in order for a nerve to send information, it works as an all or nothing mechanism. In other words, if there is not enough stimulation for a nerve to react, it will not send information to the next nerve. However, if there is enough stimulation, the information cannot stop. Another type of neuron is called an interneuron. These neurons make it more difficult to send information to the next nerve. For simplicity reasons, we will say the nerve stops information from moving forward. Now let's talk about two types of receptors. These receptors trigger what are called large diameter fibers, also known as large nerves. The first set of receptors are called muscle spindle cells. They are found primarily at the belly of the muscle and are responsible in measuring a strength of a muscle. The next receptor of interest is called a Golgi tendon organ. These receptors are found primarily at the musculotendinous junctions. They are responsible for relaxing muscle, respond to fast stretch, and can give a sharp sensation. This diagram shows you the general area as to where these receptors are found. Now that we have a basic understanding of our nervous system, I will describe a basic way as to how your nervous system works in order to turn off your perception of pain. The first image is showing you how the neurons hook onto the muscle and to each other to travel to the spinal cord. You can see how each nerve breaks up into different nerves at its synapse. Now in the next picture, the picture on the left is a cross-sectional view of the spinal cord. Think of it as if you're looking straight down your spinal cord. The picture on the right is of a biceps muscle, and you can see the muscle spindle cells in purple at the belly of the muscle. You can also see the Golgi tendon organs in green located at the musculotendinous junction. When healthy tissue is working properly, some very important processes occur. Muscle spindle cells and Golgi organ stimulation sends information down its large diameter fibers to the spinal cord. These fibers then stimulate an interneuron in the spinal cord. Now remember, interneurons turn off in this case. What are the interneurons turning off? The nerves that tell your body to experience pain. So these fibers turn off your experience of pain. So if this information is being broken down and the interneuron is not being stimulated, how can you possibly turn off your perception of pain? Let's look at what happens when those two key concepts that we were supposed to remember fail to occur. As a reminder, the two key concepts are: nerves need 4 ingredients in order to grow and survive: oxygen, food, stimulation, and neurotrophic factors. The other thing is, healthy tissue is required for nerve survival and symptom improvement. The next information will bring us closer to our why. This information, our basic concept as to why we experience the symptoms that we do, and likely a cause to some of our issues. First, it is important to understand what cellular metabolism is. It is the energy required for a cell to both survive and perform its intended task. Next, we need to understand what scar tissue is. Scar tissue is a fibrous tissue that replaces normal tissue after injury or exercise. Next is adhesions. Adhesions are scar tissue that abnormally occur in multiple layers of tissue. Some additional information about adhesions is it can start to grow in tissue as quickly as 10 to 14 days, especially when food, oxygen, or stimulation are not allowed to thrive. Here is a visualization as to what can happen to muscular tissue and other tissue because of adhesions. Remember what has to happen to turn off pain? How could we stimulate those receptors appropriately when adhesions are preventing proper movement to occur? Remember our top causes of peripheral neuropathy? Diabetes, acute injury, and several other types of neuropathy can cause this change in tissue. Why? Because food, oxygen, and stimulation is not only being taken away from our nerves, but also the surrounding tissue. There is another aspect that needs to be addressed: inflammation. Inflammation can be a good thing, and in many cases is the first line of defense against things that may harm the body, such as infection, injury, and other aspects. The problem is when inflammation stays in an area for long periods of time. It can lead to breakdown of tissue and create more adhesions. So, not only is food, oxygen, and stimulation important to nerves, but also to our tissue. So let's review. In a healthy, functioning nerve process, we can turn off our perception of pain. But when abnormal tissue, as a result of less oxygen, less food, and less stimulation to tissue and nerves, abnormal tissue occurs, causing catastrophic events to occur that make it very difficult for healing to occur. When damage continues to outpace healing, this is why we continue to feel and see new symptoms pop up all over the place.